But let me tell you this, right? And not many people know this. And even accountants and solicitors don't know this. As a property trader, there's ways to mitigate not having to pay the stamp duty. Like we flew first class from London to Dubai. We paid £1,300. You're talking about £26,000 versus £1,300 and some points and a voucher.
What is a good card? Maybe look at.
If I'm going to keep it super simple, my favorite card is Dubai right now is close to the P. I also think there's another side to Dubai that people need to know.
Have you ever thought about investing that side? Welcome back to Take a Seat. Boy, have I got an episode ready for you today. Our guest has trained in a totally different industry to which he's gone into. But guess what? He's already award winning. He does all of the property trades and flipping. He's done over 240 deals. He's also got an estate agency which holds over 600 properties. So please welcome Saif.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
What's happening? How are you?
Good to be here. I'm finally, in the studio and looking forward to this.
Yeah, man. How's your week been?
Good. I mean, to be honest with you, it's like anything really at the minute. Everything's just all over the place. It's that kind of first start to the year. But, generally speaking, I'm the type of person that embrace challenges. And I know that entrepreneurialism comes with challenges. So I'm kind of always quite cool, calm and collected. And I just kind of say, we will solve everything. So it's been quite challenging, but generally, we'll solve it.
Amazing, bro. Well, I know a lot of people start with, a lot of goals, what they're going to do for the year. But like, I was messaging you and you're like, I'm going away.
Yeah.
Like, is that how you start your year or?
Do you know what? I mean, I genuinely, it's kind of one of these things for me. It took me 7 years before the first time I actually went away and I didn't work. During those whole 7 years, every time I went away, I was constantly laptop, phone, calling this, that and the other. And I almost felt guilty for not doing that. So when I was away, even if I'd sit for one day by the beach, I almost felt guilty, like I need to do stuff. And 2023 was the year that I kind of, because we grew so much, I kind of wanted to take a bit of a step back. And I went on as many holidays as I could go on. And it was good, I took some time off. I literally decided, you know what? Even though everyone's kind of trying to get back into things and raring to go and all these goals. And I was like, you know what? It's fine. I want to step back, and I did, and I really enjoyed it. 2023 was great, had some really good time.
You touched on a really good point there. Like, a lot of people sometimes find it hard to get the engine running, and go out and get motivated and disciplined to do stuff. But then you have the opposite effect of that as well. When you are disciplined, when, for example, for myself, I used to work Monday to Friday and Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Just to get my cash flow going. It was my rent-to-rent strategy, working for somebody else, saving my money. But the minute I let my weekend job go, I felt like, hey, what am I doing on my weekends? And everybody else is like, yeah, I'm having a lie-in, or I've been out last night. And I felt guilty to do some of them things. How do you, slowly start changing your diary and your pattern to allow yourself to enjoy more? Because it's like a guilty pleasure, isn't it?
It is, but you know what? For me, habits are so important. Like, motivation is very short-lived. So I can feel like you can feel really motivated in January. You're going to go to the gym, you've done all these goals, etc. And then come February, March, the weather's not great, and all of a sudden that's kind of all gone. And that for me is almost it's very short-lived, right? It's like adrenaline. So for me, I was just like, I need to create habits in my life. So one thing that when I went away, I was like, this is amazing. This is such a nice lifestyle. And then I went back and I was like, I kind of want to go back into things and get back into work. And when you go back into work, you want to go back on holiday. And I was like, well, what is that perfect balance? And for me, I realized what is a perfect balance is 3 to 4 months of hard work, head down, like late evenings, if I need to do late evenings, and just really, really going for it. And then 1 to 2 weeks of a holiday, because you don't feel guilty for that. So really just doing these kind of, hard working periods with a bit of relaxation, because also the mind needs to switch off as well. Like, you can't be constantly going for 3 or 4 years without having a break.
Absolutely. You need that, time out
Exactly.
sort of thing. And it's just like, the thing is, nobody has that blueprint.
Yeah.
Because what we're taught is 9 to 5. Your evenings, you can go and enjoy yourself and just chill out or watch Netflix. And on weekends, it's like, don't work on yourself. That's your time just to chill, and we're normally annually given, I don't know, is it 4 to 6 weeks a year?
Around that, yeah.
And you try to fit that around school holidays, for example, or maybe go that one holiday a year. So where does somebody because a lot of people will listen to you and go, "That's crazy."
Yeah.
Working evenings, working so hard, it's like burning yourself out just for them 2 weeks. Like, where is that balance? Where does somebody find out about that?
So for me, balance comes in the form of, because I'm enjoying what I'm doing, I don't mind working into the evening sometimes. I don't mind working into the weekend sometimes. But at the same time, if I need to take a day off, a week off, whatever it is, I then don't feel guilty for that. So the balance for me is really like enjoying what you're doing. And that's really, really key. Does it come with its challenges? Absolutely. There's nothing that's plain sailing. But if you're enjoying that, you're doing that willingly, not, like, for example, in my previous role as a pharmacist, I used to work Monday to Saturday. I used to have to put my holidays in 12 months in advance. And to me, that was almost like I was literally chained up and basically restricted. And I just didn't like the restriction. So for me, having the freedom doesn't mean you're going to go on holiday for a whole year. Having the freedom means you use that. But at the same time, you can work really, really hard because you're enjoying it. And then you can start to kind of, if you have a friend's wedding or whatever it is, you can take time off without feeling guilty.
Yeah, I like that. You talked about your passion, and when you're passionate about something, it doesn't feel like work all of a sudden. So you're not clock watching that. Oh, I'm gonna have to switch off a clock off, and we can feel like that sometimes. So what was it about the property industry? Because you did train as a pharmacist.
Yeah.
Did you want to become a pharmacist?
No, when I set out to basically decide what I want to study at uni, I think it was just that kind of, I come from a Middle Eastern background. So it's always that, engineer, solicitor, but doctor, pharmacist, etc. And I think at the time I just chose pharmacist. It was the most random thing. I still to this day do not know why I went to pharmacy. I genuinely don't.
And that's a long degree, no?
It was a 4-year degree with a master's and then a year's training. So basically 5 years.
Yeah.
I would say, though, it did give me the kind of foundations to get me to where I am now. So it's not like it's, completely lost. And I've got good background knowledge in general, because although it's pharmacy and you think science, you learn everything from law to numbers. You can't even use a calculator in your exams.
Wow.
And you have to know how to do maths and numbers and stuff. So it was a degree that actually gave you a lot of background skills, which was pretty good.
Amazing. But what didn't stop you from going, right, I want my own sort of business. I know pharmacy. Why don't I have a chain of pharmacists, like sort of?
Because I was not passionate about pharmacy. And to me, it almost felt like I was basically a shopkeeper in a way. Genuinely, that's what I felt like. And look, I also felt like there was not as many challenges. And I kind of looked and I was like, where is the money, right? Because I wanted to do something, not just from a point of view of making loads of money, but having a really good reward if you're going to work hard. And within pharmacy, it was quite difficult to get to that. Yes, you can have a chain of 20, 30, 40 pharmacies, but it's like opening a coffee shop. Unless you're a Costa Coffee with 100, 200, 300 coffee shops, whatever it is, you're either a self-employed person that has one or two, but that middle ground is very difficult. So for me, I just realized that quite early on. And I said, you know what? I'm going to basically change my career path. And for me, it wasn't like I just went completely U-turn on pharmacy. It was like, let me use my kind of knowledge. And I got into healthcare, basically. So I was exporting vitamins, I was exporting pharmaceuticals, etc. That's kind of what I went into before I got into property.
Okay. And how did you make that transition to property?
So for me, it was so simple, right? I was living in Manchester at the time. I was doing a year's training in Manchester. I was in Manchester Piccadilly. That's kind of where I was working. And I saw all these big skyscrapers. This is when Manchester was what they called up and coming at the time, right? So sort of Salford was still getting the kind of whole media city vibe, and you're getting all these big tower blocks just starting. And I looked around me. 2015 is when I actually bought my first property. I looked around me and I was like, there's all these new builds going on. They're all shiny. What about these second-hand flats that have already been built? They've already had all the new build premium taken out of them, right? And they're good value for money. And I saw one at the time. It was up for 110,000. I went and viewed it. I wanted to bid on it, and it ended up just selling. And I was just like, you know what? It's not meant to be. And the agent then called me back and said, you know that flat you went to see? I was like, yeah. He was like, I've got an Asian lady that's moving back to Asia, and she's got one, and she'll sell it for 94,000 without going to the market. I was like, brilliant. I mean, is it the same exact flat? It was like, yeah, it's a 2-bed. It comes with an allocated parking, blah, blah, blah. It's currently rented. It's going to be rented probably for about 700, 750. I was like, brilliant. Sounds good. And I just bought it. It was a vanilla property. Didn't do any refurbs to it. Didn't do anything creative. Just put 25% down, took out a mortgage. And that same property, 2018, when I refinanced it, was worth 150,000, got valued at 150. It didn't do anything to it. And that showed me the power of capital appreciation and the power of property.
Before we even get to, you know, because that looks like the ignition,
Yeah.
you know, that fired and fueled what's to come. How did you know that you needed to save money? How did you know that, you know, you needed to invest in assets?
Do you know what? From a young age, I was just one of these types of people that always saved. So my friends, even my family, my brother and my sisters, they would always buy the brand new phone, brand new trainers, brand new everything. And I was that kid that took the hand-me-downs. You know, I didn't really mind it, at all about it. I didn't have the latest phone, didn't have, you know, the latest technology.
Have you got a big family?
Got a brother and a sister. Okay. So yeah, we're three, 5 in total, obviously, in the household. And I was just kind of like, I want to save this money. I didn't know what I was saving for, but I wanted to save. And ever since that point, I worked lots of different jobs. I didn't kind of work loads of full-time jobs, but just to give you an example, like when I was at uni, I went and did leafleting for a local club at the time. But what I did was, rather than actually do the leafleting, I found someone to do it cheaper than I was getting paid. So basically, I was getting paid £9 an hour. I found someone that would do it £6 an hour, and I made £3 an hour. And I did that with leafleting. I also did that with, you know, when the people that hold up the signboards, like restaurant this way and stuff like that. Again, so I was always finding an arbitrage, right? Or I'd buy stuff in a multi-pack and sell it in singles. And for me, every single penny that I made was saved. Every single penny of that. And I was a saver from day one. And then I thought, well, what do I do with this money? Because ultimately, even back in 2015, people were talking about market crash, funnily enough, then. And I was just looking around. I was like, there really isn't anything else that I know apart from property. And property was just one of these things that the UK nation loves it, don't they? It's just a thing that we're kind of it's ingrained in us. And I just didn't think anything creative. I just thought, I want to buy a property. That's it, you know?
What do your parents do, or what were they doing when you
so
were growing up?
My dad was a landlord. He's an entrepreneur. He's a landlord. Okay. He kind of went through his cycles as well. He obviously was a big landlord in London, had some prime properties. And then when the interest rates went up to like 18, 19% back in the 80s, it wiped him out. So I learned a lot from him in terms of what went wrong.
Yeah.
And I applied it to basically what I'm doing to make sure that we don't have those same mistakes.
You learn from that. Okay, nice. And your mum?
My mum worked in a bank at the time. She was a kind of secretary. She worked in a bank. She kind of did loads of different things. And then she did translation for, you know, in schools and stuff like that. But she was always on and off work. She never kind of, you know, she was never in full-time employment all the time. It was like she'll work for 2 or 3 years and then she'll basically stop. So she was kind of more of a housewife / she would work basically just because she wanted to get out of the house, you know.
Okay, nice. And what's your background, can I ask?
So, I mean, my background is, my parents are originally from Iraq. I was born and bred in Hammersmith in London, lived in London for a while. We then moved over to down to Portsmouth, and then I went to uni in Brighton, and then that's kind of where I went to do my training in Manchester from there.
Do you think your culture influenced the way you are? You know, is there a certain thing that, you know, is it Iraqi?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there certain things that you guys do in your culture that's different to how British people normally do it? Was it different behind closed doors?
I wouldn't say our culture has influenced things. I'd say my parents have influenced things. You know, they were really like, especially my mum, she was very hands-on with bringing us up and wanting to make sure that we had everything that we needed and the best things. And, you know, we went through this phase of, you know, my dad was an entrepreneur, he made loads of money, and then he kind of went through this phase of basically getting wiped out with it all. So we had money and then we didn't have money, if you see what I mean. So it's quite difficult to go through that. I'd rather go from a point of view of not having money and then having money, because you're kind of going up. But if you're going down, it's a lot more demotivating, etc. But for me, I feel like their upbringing and them wanting to basically focus on us was really, really important, because they sacrificed a lot for us. Mm-hmm. For example, my dad didn't have much at the time, but he sent me to uni and he paid for everything. And this was at a point where I didn't take out any student loans, didn't do any of this. He said, I don't want you to basically graduate with debt. He said, I want to pay for everything, even though he didn't have loads at the time. But for me, that was like, he sacrificed all of that. And you know what? When I was at uni, it's a 4-year degree, right? The first 2 years, I didn't do anything. I genuinely didn't. I didn't go to every single lecture. I was missing things. And when you looked at me, you'll be like, this guy's not even going to finish uni. But the last 2 years, because I knew that he sacrificed everything, I rolled my sleeves up. And the last 2 years were the major years that basically counted towards my degree. I just went for it and I got a first in the end, you know. Wow. And I was like, it doesn't really mean anything, even today when you graduate with a first, it doesn't mean anything like it used to mean before. But for me, it was like, I want to prove that he's sacrificed his money and I want to basically give him something back. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of that kind of person that was like, you know what, he sacrificed, I want to give him back. But their upbringing for me was a big thing.
Where does that appreciation come from? Because there's some people who can be really spoiled and go, yeah, so what? He's got money, he's got properties, he's paid for my uni. I don't care. Like, he should have done that for me anyway. But you're like, no, I need to give him something back for this. Like, what do you think where that come from?
I think we're quite a close family. So, like, you know, he would be the type of person that would be like, we always have to have dinner together. So we always want to sit on the dinner table. It was like the only time we all sat together and talked and all the rest of it. So we were quite a close family. But I also think from my perspective, we spent a lot of time together. You know, you get a lot of families these days that, you know, everyone's doing different things. They're always out, you know, with different people, etc. And they're kind of, you don't really spend so much time these days with your family. Whereas for us, he was very traditional. He wanted us all to spend time. So we would even go out and do things as a family. We do activities, we do this, that, and the other. Whereas I feel like these days, that's kind of long gone. People don't either have time or they want to be out with their friends or stuff like that. So for me, I think the appreciation came from, you know, being close to them, basically.
How do we sort of, you know, I came from a very good time like that as well, where as soon as your dad's at home, it's like the king is here, you know, on the table, hi dad, like, you know, eat together and stuff. But these days it's very different. It's like you come home and the kids are just going to be scrolling and, you know, on the iPads. I mean, literally, if you're born after 2003, you're born with an iPad in your hand.
Absolutely.
Like, that's like, you know, leaving the house without your underwear if you don't have that. Really. Basically, you know, how do we bring that culture back in? Because it feels like it's just running away.
Do you know what? I feel like everyone is so busy, but they're not prioritizing family. I've got a 2-year-old daughter, and you know, it's so easy to just give her the iPad or give her the phone or give her whatever, and basically you can get on with your stuff, right? When she's crying or when she's in a mood or whatever it is. But we deliberately hold back from doing that, and deliberately she doesn't have an iPad and all the rest of it because we feel like sacrificing our time to put into her is going to pay dividends later on. But I feel like the problem is people are too selfish. It comes from a point of view of being too selfish. You want to watch your movie, you want to watch your series, you want to do your work. Even when, you know, sometimes I feel like I can be a bit selfish sometimes when I'm like, I say to my wife, just, can you take care of it? I just need to finish work. And it's like, I appreciate work is important, but also you need to that's a bit of me being selfish because I could say, do you know what? I'll dedicate half my time to work and half my time to basically doing something with her so she doesn't have to have a digital device. And sometimes, that, you know, the other day we built a train set together. We bought these train sets, it's like 150 pieces, and we put it all together. It took about 3 hours. She absolutely loved it. Mm-hmm. The problem is we are, as human beings, we're meant to be doing things. We're meant to be using our energy, right? Mm-hmm. And kids, we tell them just to sit down. We tell them just to basically get on with things without, you know, consuming that energy. And of course they end up becoming hyper. Of course they end up basically getting, you know, to a stage where basically they're either crying or they're moody or whatever. So I think we just need to go back to taking them out on their scooter, taking them out for a walk, just exploring that nature and being natural versus just using technology all the time, because technology is not good for us, you know, as much as we love it.
Absolutely. No, that makes total sense as well. My son, Sean, he's 11 now. And
Sean Jr.?
Yeah, basically... Yeah, he might be playing the piano soon and getting tips or something. He wants to start his little side hustle. Like,
nice.
Maybe I'll play the piano and we can request it on Instagram and then people can drop me £1 or something like that.
Nice.
And he's like, I like the sound of that, you know. But I put a lot of pressure on him recently. He's in a school and he's potentially losing his place there, and it's probably one of the top schools in the country. And I'm like, you can't lose your spot here. And so now I've put in like some tutoring in for him every single day. And I've tried to do things a little bit different because the thing is, Sean is very creative. Yeah, he's not very
academic.
Yeah. And he gets by. Like he's quite at a good level, but you really need to push him. But Legos, he'll turn it into a boat. He'll turn that boat into an aeroplane. I'm like, it didn't even have instructions for that. But the guy can sit there for 4 hours with no human contact.
He's just hands-on.
He can do it. And so recently I took it away from him because I was like, no, we need to concentrate on this. On the 20th of February, which is 4 weeks, we need to smash this. But I've just seen him go like this now. He's like, like, you know, come down and go, I'm not enjoying this, Dad. And I'm just like, I felt so guilty, man. I was like, okay, so now I think we need to do some R&R, so, you know, like some little time where we just dedicate to play. And dedicate to, you know, doing work. So it is important to have that little balance with them little people, you know. Yeah, it's funny because you forget sometimes how to be a child, you know.
And the thing is, I mean, our problem is we always say, don't do that and we'll give them a punishment. Don't do that because we'll give them a punishment. And actually, when I started understanding more of the kind of psychology behind it, it was very much a case of you need to reward people, right? So, for example, my daughter was using a dummy constantly, and she would never ever let it go. When we once tried to take it away from her, and she would literally had psychological trauma from not having it for 2 hours, and we left her to cry basically because we thought we wanted to try and get it off her. And then it was only until we started to reward her and start to speak to her and say, do you know what? If you leave it, on the weekend, we'll take you to buy toys, we'll take you to buy this. And she understands, at 2 years old, she understands what money is. We'll give you money to go buy toys. And she just left it, honestly. And it was that whole rewarding people rather than punishing them is so much better because they feel, and also, the clapping for them and making them feel like they're doing something right is just so, so important.
Praise, yeah.
So important.
I saw this reel this week as well, and this guy, there was a chicken sitting down.
Yeah.
Don't know if you've seen it, but the guy reached and took the chicken's egg, and it started pecking at his hand like, right. Don't take my baby away. And so he did it again, but he opened his hand and it was all these seeds. And it started pecking at all these seeds. Thank you for the food. And then it let the guy take the egg. So it was like a reward. Thank you for letting me. Absolutely. So even like nature teaches us all of that. All right. So let's go back to 2015. You've done this property deal.
Yeah.
You still at uni or finished uni now?
No, that was, I finished. I was working at that time.
Okay. Then what happened?
So it was until 2007. It wasn't until 2017 that I bought my second property. That's when I moved to Lincoln at the time, and it was HMOs. I was going into student HMOs, so I bought my first student HMO, and I thought, do you know what? Income's so much better on this than a single let. Good cash flow, etc.
How did you know about HMO?
So funny story. I was looking at this new build studio for students, right? One of those ones that they're easy to buy, but you can't sell them, right? They're not mortgageable, the rest of it. And I only looked at it because it was like a 10% yield. It was like 50 grand. It was being developed out. You can buy it off plan. And I went into the estate agents and I was speaking to them about it, and they said, it was one of the ladies, Caroline at the time, I remember it really clearly. She said, do you know what, Saif? Why are you looking at that when we've just had a portfolio of HMOs where someone's basically been repossessed, someone's bought them and now he's selling them, and he's selling them off just a bit cheaper than what they would normally sell for, but the income's so much better on them. Mm-hmm. And that was it. I didn't do any research. I didn't even know what HMO was at the time. And then I looked more into it and I was like, you know what, yeah, you're right. And I ended up buying that. It was a freehold house, it was a 4-bed, and it was income generating, which was great. And that's what got me into the kind of world of HMOs. And I think I did probably about 13 HMOs before I realized this is not working, basically.
Right.
And the problem for me was I was doing it in an area where capital values were lower, which was good, but also the tenant type was so transient. So, you get loads of like white collar European tenants, for example, that were coming in specifically for a 3 or 6 month role within an Amazon warehouse or Tesco warehouse, wherever it was. And there was just so much tenant turnover. The rents weren't getting paid on time, or, there was lots of voids, lots of bills, etc. And we put so much effort and capital into these properties. I had nothing at the end of it. Like literally we had nothing in the bank. We had 13 HMOs. The income wasn't as great as we thought it was going to be from it, because obviously it was all up and down, and we had nothing in the bank. And that was the light bulb moment of what made me become a trader today. I decided, do you know what? I'm going to sell my best performing HMOs. I'm going to reverse engineer this. And actually, because they're always valued on a yield basis and a commercial value, and they were all pretty much brand new at the time, I'll sell them now better than later. And we did. And it was like all of a sudden, we profited 40, 50, 60 grand from each of these HMOs when we were flipping them. And I was like, money's back in the bank, not only our original capital, but profit. And I was like, okay, so basically what I am going to do is, rather than basically investing my capital, I'm going to amplify this capital first, right? So it's that old age saying, I say, earn, amplify, then invest, and then compound. And everyone really misses that amplification phase of that. But actually, if you have a small pot, you need to basically double that pot, quadruple it, whatever, before you start investing. Because when you invest your money, in a way, you're almost killing off your capital. So you're basically sat there waiting for your rental income to come in. So if you can basically maximize that pot and make basically 10x it, and then start investing, you can have a much bigger portfolio, much more comfortable. I get that people are like, but you can go and raise money if you don't have it. But also that puts pressure on you as well, because you need to pay back that money, right? So I actually always have said to people, my biggest thing looking back on my whole journey would be rather than going straight into investing, I would have basically just started trading more. And that trading can apply to anything. You can trade in any kind of business, cars, watches, whatever you like to trade, whatever your niche is. But for me, it was just trading property.
So trading, you mean buying and selling that same asset, finding a market where it's worth more?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, there's a few different things that I kind of go into when I'm trading. I come back to arbitrage, right? Ever since I was young, I like the word arbitrage. And arbitrage is basically finding something that hasn't been marketed well, hasn't been sold well, i.e., a multi-pack into a single, and then maybe you can add inconvenience to that as well, where you can sell it somewhere where people don't have access to loads of supermarkets or shops, whatever. In the property world, I saw properties that were put into auction where there was no access given, there was no photos online, just one photo, no floor plan, no real proper marketing done. And I thought, that's an opportunity, because 90% of the people that would normally buy, the retail buyers, are going to be put off by that. You're going to only have a 10% of the professional buyers that would take a bit of a punt on that. And I thought, as a trader, that's what I do. Buy it from one auction, allow viewings, take proper photos, take a floor plan, and sell it into another auction without doing anything other than just marketing it properly. And we were claiming 15, 20% on some of these properties. So it was, for me, it was like that auction trade. And that was the first point. The second point is, and this is probably one of the most important things for me, I was flipping houses, and I remember one house really clearly, we paid 175 for it. We spent 100 grand doing one of the best refurbs I've ever seen. You know, steel beams in, open plan kitchen with the island, landscaping, everything. And we sold it for 275. We literally made no money on that. It was a 9-month project. Our first set of builders went bust on us. We had to employ another set of builders. It was just an absolute nightmare, and we made nothing from it. And then it was like, well, what if I sold that 175 grand property? Because it was priced well, we bought it well, but I sold it for 190 or 195. So made a small profit on it and let someone buy it, and maybe they're a builder and they can do the refurb for 50, whatever. And that's what then got me into trading, because I'm like, I can let someone else basically do whatever calculations they think that they're going to the refurb's going to be, and let them take that headache on. And that's why I trade properties now. I don't do the refurbs on them.
So there's a few things that are coming to mind right now. First of all is risk. Yeah. So I'd like to speak a little bit about the risk of buying properties without viewing them, or, you know, a lot of properties that go into auctions go in there for a reason, where they're quite defect. And the second thing that I'd like to also talk about is, first of all, the finance. So if you need a cash pot for that to do it as swiftly and fast as you do it, or can you take advantage of bridging? And then what about all of the other costs associated with, like solicitor fees and stamp duties and the extra 3%? What applies to this and what doesn't apply, sort of thing? So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the risk side.
Yeah, so risk is probably one of the biggest things for me that I look at, right, on a day-to-day basis within the business. And this is a concept that's quite hard for people to understand. But the reality is, when you're doing a small amount of volume, let's say you do one deal, the risk is so high, because it's basically either you make money from it or you don't, right, for that one property. When you do 10 deals and you don't make money on 1 or 2 properties, and you break even on 1 or 2 properties, and you make money on 6, all of a sudden your risk goes down, because what happens is you blend in your profits across the board, you know, and you might not even make a loss on 2. They might make a loss on 1 of them, whatever. But for me, risk comes from doing a small amount of volume. And that's why we are in the volume business. We buy probably about 5 to 6 properties a month, and that's what we sell as well. So for me, I'm not going for £1 million properties, £2 million properties, or even 600 grand properties. Our criteria is set where it's really, really low risk. And the reason is, we only buy freehold properties under 300k, okay? We generally don't buy kind of in the northeast. We're looking for the better areas like the northwest, the West Midlands, the East Midlands. And I'm buying at a significant discount to what I know it will resell for, okay? Now, that's not to say that, you know, we might not make a loss on one. I think out of 240 properties, to be honest, we've probably made a loss on 3 properties. But I'm also, even though I do volume, we've also got a system in place. When we analyze that deal, that's not me analyzing it. Got someone in the team that will analyze it, that we've got a process for. And the reason is it takes emotion out of it. Because if I've got a connection to it, or if I'm thinking, you know, I'm in a good mood, I've just sold something, I want to buy something, I might pay more for that, or I might make a decision that basically is based on emotion. Janica, who's in the team, she will analyze everything. She will basically come up with the final figure. And all I have to then basically come back to is just have an overview and say yes or no, basically, to it. But and the only time I actually lost money on properties is when we didn't have that process in, and I made a decision on that. And that was a wrong decision, but it was also I made a decision, so I stuck with it. So for me, that's how I would basically de-risk it. Is you need to look at what if things sold for an auction. So you're looking at comparables, not just on Rightmove, not just what's for sale. You're looking at what's actually sold for an auction, number one. And then number two, I call auction. I know pretty much 80% of the auction is all around the country, whether it's Savills, Auction House. So I'll pick up the phone and I'll call them and I'll say, we've had another property in that area that's actually struggled quite a bit. And I know what's selling well. So for example, right now, what's selling really well in auction is your 3-bed semi-detached vacant properties. What's not selling so well is tenanted properties, especially stuff with a lower yield. So you can look at that as an opportunity, or it depends how you want to look at it, maybe as a bit of a risk. So that's risk, right? That's kind of how we analyze risk. That's how we look at risk. What was the second question?
So when you're buying and selling these properties, what about all of the costs associated?
All of the costs. So we are absolutely stacking everything on bridging loans, right? So the way I look at things is if you can't make a profit with a bridging loan, then it's not a deal in the first place. Even if you don't take out the bridge loan, right? But the bridging loan is what either A, builds up your cushion, if you like, if you're not using bridging loan, or B, tells you whether it's a good or bad deal. So for me, we're stacking things based on bridging loans. We're stacking things based on what's the stamp duty. But let me tell you this, right? And not many people know this. As a property trader, and even accountants and solicitors don't know this, as a property trader, we have over 50 different stamp duty exemptions, only as a property trader. So let me give you an example. Sean's buying a brand new build home, okay? So you're buying a new build from a new build developer. You want to sell your second-hand home to me or the developer. We both don't pay stamp duty on that home. If you're buying a new build home, you get stamp duty relief if you're trading it on. And that's the key. I can't hold that house. I can't rent it out. I can't do anything with it. I can trade it. I'll give you another one as an example. Probate. If I'm buying a probate property, there's a whole set of criteria, less than half a hectare, for example. You can only spend less than £10,000 on it. You can't spend more than £10,000. And then again, the person that's selling it to you, the deceased person that's basically you're buying it from their estate, the deceased person has lived in there within the last 2 years. If you tick all those boxes and I trade it, I don't pay stamp duty on that. So there's ways to get around stamp duty within a degree. There's a whole host of things. The other thing is, there's ways to basically mitigate not having to pay the stamp duty, like a back-to-back transaction. So back-to-back transaction is effectively, I've exchanged contracts with Sean, I then go line up a buyer, and then my completion with Sean on the purchase and my completion in exchange with whoever it is on the sale is done the same day. So it's called a simultaneous exchange and completion. And there's something called stamp duty subsale relief, right? So people don't really know about this stuff because that's what the traders do. And the traders are like ninjas in this world. They don't really talk about it, right? So, but there is also times where I've stacked the deal where I have to pay the stamp duty. I don't always get around it, but everything is always about just stacking the deal according to what figures you've got in front of you. The last thing I'll say, and this is what a lot of traders you'll find do, is traders will put their fees into the special conditions of an auction, for example. So when you're buying something through auction, sometimes at the end you get in the completion statement, it's like, oh, there's an extra 3% fee on top of the purchase price. And it's like, where's that come from? And that's what we put. So any of our costs associated with selling it, legals, blah, 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 not stamp duty necessarily, that goes into the condition. So whoever's buying a property from auction, if you're buying it from a trader, I think even normal vendors are doing that these days, you need to be very conscious of how much is in the special conditions, how much extra you're paying on top of the actual auction price.
Okay, so you put a fee in there for someone buying it as an
so you cover a lot of your costs basically by doing that. That's the whole point of it.
Nice. And so alongside this, you've also built an estate agency?
Yeah, so it's a basically a property management agency. Correct. Okay. Yeah. And we manage about 600 properties, and that's basically a nationwide business model.
Right. Okay. So that's basically essentially look after other landlords' properties
as well as ourselves as well.
Okay. Yeah. And how do you manage all of that sort of side as well?
Do you know what? I've got a business partner in there. Shout out to Reese, he's absolutely brilliant. That's his passion. He loves it. I absolutely hate property management personally.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of human resource, and at the best of times, people are difficult to manage.
Can get stressful.
Very stressful. He's got 5 people in the property maintenance team. He's got 5 people in the property management team. We're very, very heavy on overheads. And I'll be honest with you, we don't make much money in that business right now.
Wow.
But it's not about money for us. That business is about an exit at some point, right? Whether we exit to someone that's got a bigger estate agency that's consolidating a few estate agencies. Also, the other exit that we're thinking about is exiting to a REIT, for example, where we can offer them a tech solution, because our whole proposition is we're basing everything on tech. We've got an amazing piece of software. It's not an off-the-shelf software, it's a bespoke software. And we can basically, for example, tell you when your roof was last installed. So it was last installed in the 1970s. So based on the modeling and prediction, we think that you might have to replace that roof in another 20, 30 years or 10 years or 5 years. Your boiler is 3 years old, so you probably won't have to replace it for another 10 years or whatever it is. Because that, to a REIT, for example, that's working on a very large scale, is so important that they can start to forecast their capital expenditure into the future. But we're working on a solution where it's basically an all-in-one solution. It uses a lot of technology, and basically the REITs can basically take that and start managing their stock. Because where the REITs are, the real estate investment trusts, they're all doing build to rent. Because build to rent is a brand new shiny product, et cetera, et cetera. It's easy and it's all in one block. But there's new REITs now coming into the secondary market. When I say second, I mean the second home market. The only reason why they've not come into it is because it's very difficult to manage. Especially if you've got single units all over Manchester, all over Liverpool, whatever it is, it's quite difficult. So we're offering them a management solution. So we're very much building that out to basically exit it at some point.
What is your opinion on AI right now? Because like it's being used for everything, like Chat GPT. Like, you know, I could have probably potentially got this whole podcast script ready going, I'm dealing with a property trader today. Give me 10 questions to ask him. You know what I mean? Like, and it just writes it in a sec. Do you know what I've even done? I've even gone, right, I want to motivate my son, to do how well he's going to do in his school. And so I put his school name and his name in it, and it's wrote me a whole rap, and I rapped it to him. And he was like, did they make that for me, Dad? I was like, yeah. I was like, it took me 2 minutes. Like, anything possible with AI, bro. Like, there's so many different sectors and marketing, and you're telling me, you know, you're gonna, you've potentially designed something bespoke yourself with roofs and boilers that, you know, it's changing everything. And something you mentioned earlier on is human emotions. And that emotions can always get us in trouble. Like,
absolutely.
Even down to love. You know, you can choose the wrong girl, because even if your parents go, she's the wrong woman for you, but you're just like, full of her, you know, like
it's emotion,
you know, it's all emotion. So what's your opinion on AI?
I think AI is brilliant. I really do. And I think the reality of it is, though, it's not the 100% solution that you need. I still think there needs to be a human intervention, whether it's the input into the AI to get back what you want, or whether it's the input to basically say, right, this is a good guideline, but I'm going to kind of tweak it, if that makes sense. And as much as I think AI is great, I think we're still not 100% there yet in terms of fully automating everything using AI. So I feel like humans still need to have an input, but I feel like we are on the path where AI is going to fully take over certain tasks, certain processes, certain things, and there's going to be no need for humans. But I think we're not there yet, so we still need the humans. So for me, I think implementing AI into a business with humans is really, really good. Then if you add in layers like automation and stuff like that, like just for example, if, I don't know, someone basically emails us or chats to us, whatever, and says, my boiler's not working and it's in the middle of winter and we know it's probably snowing outside. It's like, right, well, have you tried to pour boiling water over your flue outside, for example? You know, these little things that you can have. But then that won't know how to sort a situation out. If the answer to that is, yes, I have, and it's still not worked, it then needs to go into a human, if that makes sense. But you can automate and you can use AI for a lot of the things, the bulk of the things, but they will always need that human interaction at some point.
Yeah, for sure. How do you because we're it's coming more apparent working with machines more and more with me, because it's just like you tell a machine to do something, it will do it. With the type of business that you have, you're probably working with a lot of people as well. And you got to remember that this is your business, this is your vision, this is what you want to do, and it's somebody else's job, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And how do you get your employees motivated? How do you get them to want to reach their targets, or for you to go, why hasn't that been done yet? Like I spoke about this about a week ago. Why are we repeating ourselves? How do you get over that side?
So for me, I'm very much a case of, well, first of all, it's probably worth noting that I'm very much a firm believer in offshoring. So we have a big team. We have probably about 15 people out in the Philippines, 2 out in India. And when I say that, people are like, oh, you've got VAs. I'm like, no, we don't have VAs. This is not these are not virtual assistants. They're virtual team members. They've all got a role and responsibility. They all work 9 to 5. They're basically in the job, and they're not being spoon-fed. A VA, and a VA can be in the UK, could be anywhere really, but a VA is, here's a task, do it. Okay, I finished it. Here's another task, do it. And you're spoon-feeding. A virtual team member is someone that has a role and responsibility, and you might not even need to interact with because they know what they're doing and they're getting on with it, right? So when I'm telling you about our acquisitions, our 5-6 acquisitions, everything from our bridging loan providers to our solicitors to our insurance brokers, I don't deal with that. They deal with that all out from the Philippines. You won't know that as a solicitor, but you're getting an email instruction with everything of this is the property we're purchasing, etc. So for me, having the people on board from out there, but we're paying them way above what the norm is over there, not just in terms of what someone would pay from the UK to them, we're even going above and beyond that. So we're paying them a really, really good rate. And obviously they're all, I guess, on time, right? So we use a piece of software called Time Doctor, which tracks their time. So the more they work, the more they get paid. That's how it is. And that's obviously really, really important for productivity. But they're getting paid so much that it means such a big difference to them. I went out in January to go and meet them all. We did a team building activity. We spent £15,000. We basically got them all rooms in a 5-star hotel out there. We rented a boat. We did water sports. We did all of that stuff. Do you know how much they appreciated that? No one's ever done that for a team out there in that kind of way. And for them, that's all about retaining them. And they worked, after that trip, they just all shifted gear and they just worked so hard because they were like, we want another one of these next year or the year after, whatever, you know? So that for me is really, really important. But I think the same time, they've got to enjoy what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I'm such a big believer in if someone's not doing a job right, let's try and understand what their skill sets are. Can we move them into a different part of the business? I'm not going to be like, right, let's get rid of them, let's fire them. No, first of all, I want to understand, are they not in the right job role, right? And if we move them to another part of the business and they still don't do well, then obviously we'll have that conversation at that point. But I'm also very much if people enjoy what they do day to day, and if they have a bit of freedom, so we give people guidelines, but we're not spoon feeding, they really enjoy that. They love that. They don't want someone that's going to tell them every single day and get pissed off with them and shout at them and do this, that, and the other. I'm just like, look, we're not that type of company. We're a type of company that if you want to bring your A game, if you want to basically bring your own mindset and intuition, this is a company for you to work at. If you want someone to spoon feed you, we are not that company. And I'll say that from the beginning with them.
Wow. Okay, nice. So what brought you to the Philippines, like to get your team from there?
We first started employing people in the UK. The problem with the people that we had personally, and this is not just a generalization thing, you know, by the time they come into the office, they commute. I'm late, I'm this, that, and the other. They're coming at 9:10, and by the time they make the coffee and the tea, and it's 9:45, and then it's like, and there was just so many excuses every single time. Yeah. And for me, it wasn't even all that. That was all part of it. It was the lack of appreciation, right? It was I can just get any other job, or do you know what? I don't need to work. I can just sit at home basically and claim bet. Whatever it is, it's like, for me, it's just the lack of appreciation. I was like, something's wrong here. Like, I can't scale a team and a company like this. And I took on I actually had my first virtual assistant in the UK. She was actually close to me and she was brilliant, but she ended up basically setting up her own business. And I thought, okay, I need another virtual assistant. Actually, I took on a virtual assistant from the Philippines. It didn't work out. But then I started to look at, okay, well, what if I start to actually put a role and responsibility together and put a proper ad out through an agency out there? And I want to take on a full-time team member. It just so happens that they work from the Philippines. And we did. We even did things like we had virtual offices. We literally had a virtual office where you have a chill-out area, you know, like virtually you can it's almost like The Sims, basically. You speak to each other, you can mute yourself, unmute yourself, put your camera on. We had a chill-out area, we had offices. So if you wanted to basically speak to us, you'd come into our virtual team office and you just take a seat in one of our offices and we'll sit and talk. You know, it's like Google Meets or Zoom, but on steroids. It was absolutely brilliant. So, you know, there's a lot of like tech that's really good for stuff like that now.
That's brilliant. So in your business, it's not just you, right?
Correct.
There's a team of yous.
Yeah.
So it's very good to know about, talk a little bit about partnerships.
Yeah.
How do you know if somebody's a right partner, whether you should joint venture with somebody? What was the sort of thought process behind that? And also, family businesses.
Because
I even had somebody here the other day and he was like, you know, I've got a family business with a few people, like my dad's involved, mum's involved, sister's involved, but you know, my sister's off on maternity right now.
Yeah.
But we're still paying her. But is that a good business decision? Would that have happened if it was just an employee? No, it wouldn't. maybe mum wants to get her nails done and a few other things done, wants to lay off a little bit, but still getting full shares out of it. So there's things you can do with family and not with family, if that makes sense, and whether it's a good business sort of decision. So what's your whole thought process behind this?
So let's touch up on partners first, right? And I've got this really, really good philosophy and model for how you figure out whether someone's the right partner or not. The first thing is putting a lot on them without them expecting much back for a certain period of time. And if they survive that time, so for example, one of my business partners who I now have, Reese, who runs the lettings business, he was with us for probably about 3 months without getting paid a single penny, nothing.
Wow.
But he was dedicated, and it wasn't all about the money for him. It was about the learning and everything else. And to me, that level of dedication, that level of, I don't care about the money, I care about the opportunity, was one of the biggest things that led me to say, do you know what? This person is motivated and dedicated to this. So that was the first thing. The second thing is, in terms of risk, because obviously you don't ever want someone to screw you over, is just laying down that, lay a cheese trap, right? So lay your trap in your little cheese, and you basically try and lure the mouse in. And does the mouse take the cheese and basically where they get trapped in? You need to give them an opportunity to fuck you over. And if they haven't fucked you over and you give them multiple opportunities, are they likely to fuck you over in the future? Probably not, right? And I say that very lightly, but genuinely, I've given so many opportunities to so many of my partners where they could have taken advantage, and I've done it on purpose, but they've not. And to me, that was like, it's like that whole, that you see them always on Instagram or TikTok, where a girlfriend like tries to get her sister or a friend or whatever to try and obviously cheat on her husband, and then he ends up not taking the bait or whatever. And it's that same old philosophy. It's like, try and see how someone's personality is when they've got the opportunity to do something. And if they don't, then that tells you the real story. Because the thing is, I'm sat here and we're having a conversation. I can be sat here with anyone really and having a conversation with them. But that's when you're at your best. So you're always going to be smiling, you're always going to be happy, etc. But what you want to see people is when they're either with their backs up against the wall, what they're going to be doing, and when they're in a situation where they could potentially be taken advantage of something, will they?
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, I mean, specific examples. It could be things like giving them access to your company bank account or whatever it is, or giving them access to some form of money and monitoring that. Have they ever taken out a single penny more? Have they asked you about something they're going to be doing before they've done it, et cetera, et cetera? So just giving them the opportunity that they could have, but obviously don't give them access to all of your money, because obviously if they do end up fucking you over, then that's not great. But you know what I mean? Just giving them that access, or maybe, it could be anything really. It could be, leaving money behind on the table, or, whether it's 100 quid or whatever it is, and seeing, are they going to give that back to you? Are they going to be honest? Or giving them the classic one, and I've done this with builders so many times, and if I pay cash in hand for whatever reason, I give them 20, 40 quid more. And I just want to see whether they're actually going to come back to me and say, you've paid me 20, 40 quid more. And majority of builders just don't say that because they just don't give a shit. But I've had a few builders who have come back and said, by the way, Saif, do you know you've paid me 20 quid more? Here it is.
Wow.
And I said, do you know what? Just keep it. And to me, the most important thing is that person is loyal. That person is loyal. And these little things tell you so much about someone, but people don't really think that far ahead, But that's how I look at partnerships. Now, looking at the family side of things, it's tough. I'm not going to lie. It's very tough. I work with my brother and my wife as well. My wife coming into the business was really difficult because we had to basically get rid of her salary effectively. So it's almost like you're skydiving with no parachute at that point. And then B, it was like, she's so detailed, but she's not quick to do everything. But because she's detailed, she's not quick. I'm very quick, but I'm not very detailed, right? And that was frustrating me. And I then had to start to figure out like a balance between, I can't keep telling her off for stuff, she's got to find her way with things. And then the second thing was, it's when you go from employed to self-employed, but it's not you're not the main person in that business that's basically bringing in all the income. You're an operator. You can start to get a bit complacent, like taking phone calls from your family in the middle of the day and, just kind of starting to do things, which I don't mind. But when you're at the first part of that journey and you start to build those habits in, you need to basically lay those disciplines and lay those boundaries to say to family members, whoever it is, look, I appreciate I'm not in a 9 to 5 anymore, but I still have to work. So I'm happy to take a phone call. I can call you in the evenings, I can call you in the weekends, but you can't call me in the middle of the day just because you don't have work and you think that I don't have work either, right? Mm-hmm. So the key for me was just laying down a bit of the ground rules, a bit of the disciplines. And, a lot of the time it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of stressful days, talking, not necessarily arguing. It was more a case of just everyone needs to get their point across. Mm-hmm. but then finding this middle ground. That's the key.
Because that is quite a sensitive relationship. Like, 1 minute, how do you put things like in a box? Because if you're really an emotional person, you won't be able to do that. Like,
No, but do you know what? For me, we almost have this at certain points in the day. We have to switch off. So like, if it gets to 6 or 7 or whatever it is, we almost have to say, do you know what? Like, flick a switch. It's no longer business now. It's personal, because we also need our personal space, right?
yeah,
But I think because we're all so ingrained in the business, and it's like we enjoy it, it's basically what gives us our freedom. Like, my wife now comes to me and says to me, I can travel the world when, we're doing all of this, and it's because of the business. So yes, it can be stressful at times, but also we've got to be so grateful for that business. So we need to nurture that business. We need to grow it. And it almost needs to be our baby, because ultimately that's what's keeping us going. That's what's keeping the freedom going,
100. And it's great that you have that understanding. So let's talk a little bit about traveling.
Yeah.
You've mentioned that you're a big fan of, is it Avios?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is Avios?
So basically, I probably learned more about Avios in the last 2/3 years. And basically, Avios is just like a reward scheme, right?
Through what?
So Avios in general comes from various different places, but the major one is credit cards. So if you use credit cards like American Express, there's Barclaycard, there's a whole host of them. When you use that credit card, the incentive is that if you use that credit card, you get points, right? So for every pound you spend, for example, you get 1.5%, 1.5 Avios points. And there's lots of different things. When you take out a new card, you might get a big bonus of 30,000, 50,000, whatever it is. But effectively, it's just points. The way I got into it was I bought a Charles Tyrwhitt shirt 3 years ago, something like that. And it was just random that I entered into a competition to win 100,000 Avios points. And I won the 100,000 Avios points. Didn't even think anything of them at the time. I was like, what the hell is this? How do you even spend this stuff? And I used it on something like so stupid, like a hotel room when I went to Thailand or something like that. And for anyone that knows Avios, that's probably the worst way to try and get the kind of value out of it. Anyway, it wasn't until I really started to understand that where the real value in Avios is where you can get a business class or a first class flight, but you're basically literally paying just the taxes and fees. And the value for money that you're getting per Avios is so much better than an economy flight or using it for a hotel or whatever. And I mean, just to put it into perspective, for the first time ever, we flew first class from London to Dubai. We had first class, and it was me and my wife. My daughter was still below 2 years at this point. We paid £1,300 for both of us for first class. And because my daughter turned 2 while she was away, we still only paid 10% for her. But on the way back, she got her own free seat on first class.
Wow.
So we went to two seats. We came back on 3 seats on first class, and we paid £1,300. Wow. I think we paid about 180,000 Avios, and we had a companion voucher at the time. But I mean, you're talking about, I think for all those flights was about £26,000 in total. You're talking about £26,000 versus 1,300 and some points and a voucher. So for me, it was the value of, getting value for money. And this is what people don't understand. Like, I'm not a cheap person. I don't like to basically just try and skimp out on things. But what I look for is good value for money, because as entrepreneurs, we've not inherited this money. We've built it all up ourselves. Mm-hmm. Even people that I know that are multi-millionaires, you've got to be frugal, right? To a degree. But for me, Avios was just like, how do you get so much bang for your buck? And how do you have a nice lifestyle, but basically not having to spend all that money? And yeah, out of 8 seats on the first class, we had 3 of them on the way back. So, people were like, most of the people there were like for business and probably got paid by companies and stuff. And they're like, who's this that's got their 2-year-old a first class seat, on an aeroplane? And we did that multiple times. We did that on business class with Qatar Airways. We did that on business class with British Airways. We did that so many times, and we still do that today. So for me, I use Avios to be able to kind of get really, really good value for my money when I'm basically traveling.
Mm-hmm. So I've got 2 questions here. Like, I don't take advantage of any of these things, and we got big transactions that happen. So what is a good card to sort of maybe look at? Yeah.
So look, there is caveats to this. For me, again, it's a bit of a passion thing. Like, I sit and read a lot of like different blogs and stuff like that, and I find hacks in terms of how do you get more of that. So for example, I'm giving an example here. I paid my HMRC bills, probably a lot of people have done for self-employment, just a month ago. I used a Curve card with a Barclaycard, and basically got Avios points on my HMRC bill that I paid. Now that's only because there's a card called Curve, which makes any credit card look like a debit card. because you can only pay your HMRC bill with the debit card. You can't pay with a credit card. I pay my nursery bill fees with that same exact arrangement. So I'm getting Avios points on all of this stuff where you're spending, tens of thousands of pounds a year on it regardless. So that's kind of the little hacks that I do. If I'm going to keep it super, super simple for people, my favorite card is the Barclaycard American Express, okay? The American Express British Airways Avios card. It's the black card. They call it BAPP, BAP card. That gives you 1.5 Avios per pound that you spend, just to keep it simple. And if you spend £10,000 a year, you get something called a companion voucher, which means if it charges you £100,000 for one person return, you basically can get two people for £100,000. So you get 2 for 1. It's called a 2 for 1 voucher, or a Barclaycard or a American Express companion voucher. So the BAP card, if you want a referral link, let me know. I'll drop it into the comments or whatever it is. But the whole point is you refer people, because when you refer people, they get more points, you get more points. And then when I refer you, you go and tell your friends and they refer people. That's how American Express basically make their money as well. So yeah, the British Airways American Express card is what I'll start off with. Once you get to a certain American Express balance, Avios balance, let me know, and then I'll kind of tell you a bit about how you use them and how you can start to really maximize them.
Amazing. Well, I'll probably need that link after this as well. What's a good airline to be on? Like you've mentioned a few that you've gone on. Where's a good experience that you're getting?
For me, Qatar Airways was the best experience ever. Qatar Airways business class for me, and their Q suite. So their Q suites is basically where you can close the doors, and it's almost, if you have two in the middle, you have like a double bed with a little room basically. That was as good as first class in British Airways. But for me, British Airways business class is fine. It's good, but it's not like unbelievable. Qatar Airways business class was unbelievable. Emirates business class was unbelievable. And I've not flown first class Qatar Airways or Emirates, but I'm sure they're even better. And first class British Airways was amazing.
What's the difference between first class and business? I've just seen the price differences.
So the difference is, right, in business, and it depends on the seat, on the airplane. So you've got the newer airplanes, which have the new kind of seats and stuff like that, and they're a bit more private. But with first class, you are completely private. You can have a door, it closes, it shuts everything off. So you are literally in your own little world. Business class, you can still be quite close to someone else. You can kind of see someone else as well, but you almost don't feel like you're completely private. I mean, let me put it this way. In first class, they'll make your bed for you. So when you want to sleep, they'll get you your pajamas, they'll get you slippers, and they'll basically literally sit and make your bed in the middle of the airline, in the middle of the air. You can order your meals when you want. And I was sat having a steak there, and they basically make it how you want as well. So first class is just that next level of experience, next level of service. You get a much better amenity kit. So it's all Elemis products. And they just care for you. Like, I was having afternoon tea, like literally with a teapot and and tea and scones and everything else while I was watching a movie, and you do get free internet, by the way, as well.
Wow. You
get free internet on first class. You get super fast free internet on there as well. Man, so yeah,
that swung me from paying a 7,000 ticket now.
Do you know what? I don't think I would ever fly first class by paying for it. Like, now that you use the points and now that you experienced it, you're almost like, I want to do that again, but I don't want to pay like 20 grand or whatever it was for it. So that's where you can, get value for money. And that's what, as entrepreneurs, we're always looking for. How can you get good value for money? Whether you're buying a property, whether you're buying stocks and shares, whatever it is, or, whatever you're doing, you want to try and get good value for money and, do it that way.
Mate, you got me thinking, like, every term I pay 18 grand on school fees. Do you know what I mean? There's HMRC bills and, mate, you got me thinking, like,
that could all be points.
It could all be points. I've just missed out on all these points for all these years, bro.
If they don't take a credit card and they take a debit card, there's still a way to do that, and I'll speak to you about that as well.
Wow. But, okay. Nice. So recently you've been traveling. Yeah. Where have you gone?
Do you know what? Last year, so 2023, my mum's, I don't know why, but for some reason my mum's always had Japan in her mind. She's always wanted to go to Japan. It's never a place my dad's going to take her. She's not getting younger. And my wife's always wanted to go to Japan as well. And we obviously had our baby girl. And I was like, I just went and booked it. And I went to both of them. I was like, just let you guys know we're going to Japan. They're like, what? Seriously? I was like, yeah, because I'm a decisive person. And I'm like, you only live once. And to be honest with you, it was something that I would have always regretted if something happened to my mum and I didn't take her. Yeah. So I was just like, let's live in the moment. So booked the flights, went to Japan. We also use Avios as well. I put her up in business class as well, which was, again, just another really cool thing to do, basically. So we went to Japan. We did about 2 weeks there. It was incredible. It was a 15.5-hour flight, so it wasn't easy.
Wow.
but we loved it. It was a massive culture shock. Like you went there and you're like, what the hell? Like we live in a third world country in the UK compared to Japan.
Really?
Yeah, like they are on a next level technology, infrastructure, discipline. It's so safe there. No one can eat or smoke on the streets. You know, it's just totally different world. Just loads of discipline, loads of respect for people. So we did that, and that was kind of like a standalone trip. And then because of this whole hack of my daughter before she got to 2, basically, I again, it was just like a couple of months ago, I basically booked it where we were going out before she was 2 and we came back like way after she was 2. So I booked that to Dubai. And then in between, like, what we're going to do. So we decided we're going to go to the Philippines to meet the team. That was one thing. And I was like, well, while we're there, we might as well do Malaysia's there and Singapore's there. You know, it's like we've traveled all that way. We can just have like these sort of smaller local 3-hour flights or whatever. So we went to Dubai, then we went to Qatar, and then from Qatar we went to Malaysia. From Malaysia we went to Philippines, and then from the Philippines we had to go to multiple different islands. Then went to Singapore, then back to Dubai, and then back to UK. That was like a 7-week trip.
That sounds like a dream. So tell us a little bit about an experience in each of these places, and also like it would be good to know what sort of spending money, you know, because a lot of our audience are young, and they might want to experience life a little bit and learn about different cultures. So what are some of the things that they can be doing, for example, in Japan? So you said there's a great culture shock in terms of the way they were so respectful, the way you can eat and walk around on the streets. Like, what was the big difference, like the main thing?
So for me, like Japan is just so beautiful. It's almost like New York, Manhattan, but then you get all of the natural. You get like a park in the middle of this city of skyscrapers, and it's like a natural park, and just everything about Japan was just so efficient. Like, you know, you go into a restaurant, for example, and they have like a little vending machine. You put your money in, you choose what you want. You go, you sit down, you get your food. It's not like you have to sit and, you know, shout for a waiter and waiter's not coming. You have bad customer service. Their customer service every single time was incredible. The funniest thing happened. First day we got to Japan, we jet lagged as hell. We went to get some food, and I didn't know this, but apparently tipping is not really a thing in Japan. They don't like tipping. And basically, I paid the guy, and I basically just told him to keep the change. It wasn't a lot of money, the change. And then we went out, and we went all the way to get to the subway, and this guy was literally just following, like literally running behind us the whole time. He's like, "You forgot your change." He literally followed us for about 5 minutes to come and bring us back the change. And that comes from a point of view of discipline and respect. Remember I was telling you about the builders, if you gave them a bit more money, would they give you the money back? Here, like, people will just rob you for the sake of robbing you because it's like dog eat dog. Over there, it's not about money. It's not about that. It's about the respect and the discipline. And that was a huge thing for me. You know, just the way that people greet you, it's so safe. It's safe there because people are not robbing each other. People, you know, there's not as much crime. There's not as much gangs. There's not as much drugs, etc. Do you know what's crazy there, though? Fruits are so expensive.
Okay.
You know, like grapes over there. I kid you not. Like a small bunch of grapes is like 30 quid.
Really?
We were buying like apples, and like you buy one apple for like £6-7 for an apple. And they have the most expensive fruits in the world. They have an auction for melons. These 2 melons they had, it was a local McLaren melon, they sold for $44,000.
Wow.
Go online and research it. Because they don't really import fruits because the whole like viruses and bacteria and all of this kind of stuff, they home grow everything, and everything is like hand picked. You will never find a fruit where it's gone off or it's black or something like that. Every single fruit is beautifully, perfectly picked.
Well, I want it to be if I'm paying £6 for it.
Yeah, exactly. But that for me was important. One hack, right? Because I know a lot of your audience likes hacks and stuff like that. One hack I'll always say is, if you're going to a cheaper country, like Malaysia is so much cheaper than Singapore. When I say so much cheaper, I mean a fifth cheaper. Stay in really nice hotels in Malaysia. We stayed in the Shangri-La, for example, in Malaysia, which was like their flagship hotel.
It's basically what's in the Shard, right?
Correct, yeah. It was an amazing hotel. We got a suite there, right? 80 square meter suite. Even my daughter had like a tent in there to sleep in, all the rest of it. And it was unbelievable. And we paid 150 quid a night for the Shangri-La. Whereas that same hotel in Singapore was about anywhere between 800 to £1,000 a night. Wow. So what I would say is stay in the nicer hotels, the big brands, in the cheaper countries. Yeah. And then the more expensive countries like France, like Singapore, like wherever it is, just go for the better value for money hotels, right? Yeah. And then that way you can still experience things, but you're not kind of blowing your budget on every single hotel. So that's something that I always say to people is experience the nice, like Nusrat was an example. You know, Nusrat, the kind of Turkish restaurant, everyone always goes on about it. London prices, you know, you're paying 300-400 quid per person. You go to the one in Turkey, and that's the original one, that's the cheaper one, you're paying about 70 quid, 60, 70 quid.
Right.
So if you're going to try it, go to the one in Turkey. Don't go to the one, even get flights, it's going to be cheaper
You
for
get your flight with it.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, people need to think about value for money and not just basically trying to experience things for the sake of paying for it and experiencing it.
Yeah, makes sense. So you also went to Malaysia?
Yeah.
What's your top thing in Malaysia?
Malaysia, I mean, generally speaking, Malaysia's just got a lot of like really cool things to do. But what they've got is like loads of like cool, trendy, hippie co-working spaces, coffee shops. Do you know what? I actually really enjoyed just kind of going around a lot of these places and just experiencing some really nice coffee, really nice like acai bowls and stuff like that. Just stuff that would normally be very, very expensive over there. They did it really cheap and it was just really cool to experience.
What's the acai bowl?
Just like a bowl of basically like seeds, fruits. Just like it's quite a healthy thing to eat, but it's quite nice because it's almost like a bit of a yogurt kind of texture. It's quite cold as well. So kind of like between an ice cream / a yogurt kind of thing. So that's pretty nice. But also they have loads of nature as well. They just have like their big parks with loads of nature, their national museums, etc. There's lots of things to do. And they have obviously their big towers. I don't know if you've ever seen them. That's what Malaysia's basically like, obviously really like famous for as well. But yeah, Malaysia's really cool. Singapore for me was like stunning. Singapore is an Asian Dubai, basically.
Okay.
It's tiny, so expensive, like so expensive, and so high end. Everything's really high end in Singapore.
What's Singapore known for?
It's a financial hub, basically. So you've got loads of big tech companies, loads of big financial companies that have their offices in Singapore, and that's their kind of way into Asia, if you get what I mean. But basically, Singapore is an island, pretty much an island that basically is connected to Malaysia by a bridge. And it was part of Malaysia before, then they kind of separated out. So it's a city and a country at the same time. So Singapore, the capital of it is Singapore, right? But there's so many like interesting things. You can walk around. There's Marina Sands Bay. It's basically built as a green nature country / city. So wherever you go, it's just natural. It's green everywhere. It's beautiful. It's really, really nice place to be. Really nice place to be.
Nice. And so on this track, the other place you went to was Dubai, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Dubai. Everybody wants to talk about Dubai, baby.
Yeah. So look, Dubai for me is one of these kind of situations where, yes, I appreciate everyone wants to go for the glitz and the glamour. And obviously Dubai offers that. But I also think there's another side to Dubai that people need to know. And you don't have to spend loads and loads of money if you are in Dubai. There's loads of the more cultural things you can do, the more down-to-earth things to do. Yes, it's not necessarily in the center where, you know, Jumeirah is or for example, where Marina is, etc. But you do get both sides of it, and that's what I love. So if you want to go for a really nice fancy meal, you can. But also if you want to go for a down-to-earth meal, you don't really want to be having a huge budget to do that, you can do that. Mm-hmm. When I first started going to Dubai, we did everything, you know, the kind of the Burj, we did the kind of Palm, we did all of that kind of stuff, you know, and it was really nice. But I think as you start to go more and more, we're starting to kind of try and do different things. So there's Fujairah, there's so many different places, because obviously Dubai is just one of the states within UAE. Yeah. There's so many different places, like Ras Al Khaimah, like Rak, where they're building the biggest casino in the Middle East.
Yes,
that's some really cool places to go to over there. So I think, yes, you know, going and seeing basically the Burj, for example, it's amazing, and seeing the fountains and all the rest of it. But I think once you've done that a few times, you kind of want to try and have a different experience there. But look, I love it. I love the people there. It inspires me. I love talking business. Even when I go there, my wife's like, "Why are you meeting all these people?" And I'm like, because it's good to network and catch up with people there, and it inspires you to kind of see what other people are doing over there as well. But there's some really inspirational people there, and influential people as well.
There's a lot of development going on around that whole Middle Eastern sort of side, you know, like Abu Dhabi. Like it's only like an hour away, isn't it, from Dubai? You're good at investing and looking at where there's growth and potential. Have you ever thought about investing in that side?
So look, for me, I'm very conscious that I've got what's called a circle of competence, right? So take me out of my circle of competence, which is UK residential property, and put me into crypto, put me into stocks and shares, put me into property outside of that, or even commercial property for that sake. And I'm like a fish out of water because I don't have all of the advantages I normally have in the UK residential. I don't have my team. I don't have all the tools and stuff like that to basically analyze it. Can I do it? Yes, but it's not my main forte. So I generally don't look outside of the UK for that specific reason. However, saying that, if I had extra money and I wanted to buy a holiday home or wanted to buy some kind of investment, would I look at Dubai? I wouldn't look at it purely just from an investment. I'd look at it as, would I get utility from that? So would I be using that if I took my family there? How many times a year would I be using it? And then on the other days, can I use it for Airbnb, etc.? That's what I'll be looking at. But look, again, I'll need to go and learn all the laws over there, all the rules. I need to understand how are things valued. The reason why I love the UK property market, and specifically England, I don't deal in Wales, I don't deal in Scotland either. Again, don't know the rules there. The reason why I love the English property market is it's just such a stable property market. When you look at it over the years, it's slow and steady generally, apart from 21, 22, but it's slow and steady. Dubai previously, yes, it's in a very, very good place right now, but it's had its yo-yo moments, had its ups and downs. And when it goes down really, really badly. I personally feel like Dubai right now is close to the peak. However, saying that, Dubai is so much more stable than it was before because everyone wants to live there.
Yeah.
And it is this hub of Russians and Ukrainians and people from the rest of the Middle East where there's lots of wars going on, and even loads of UK people trying to get away from tax, for example. So I feel like that stability is something Dubai's never had before. So although I'm kind of like, yeah, I do really appreciate that obviously Dubai is kind of very high in terms of its valuations, I also think it's going to kind of stay pretty steady.
Yeah, you mentioned something just there about people wanting to set up their companies out in Dubai because it's quite tax efficient. I've met tax advisors out there where they're saying you can set up a hub company out here, and even like HMRC are not even allowed to look at who owns that company.
Yeah.
And for example, if you have a marketing company out in the Middle East, you can invoice your UK company. So there's a tax deductible here in the UK.
Expense, absolutely.
And over there, you're investing in like your real estate and stuff over there. But it's quite interesting. There's,
I would say you need to be making enough money in the UK to justify the cost of those advisors, to justify all of the rest of it. And the problem is people are not even making enough in the UK, and they're almost all of a sudden starting to think about tax. And I'm like, why are you thinking about tax? Like corporate tax really only kicks in when you're making big profits, right?
Yeah,
so,
true.
You need to be making significant profits to allow that, which I think is good that you're thinking ahead, but I also think it's taking your mind away from the objective. The objective is to make money. If you pay tax, that's a good thing. Once you've paid a lot of tax or you've paid tax, then you can start to think about the next steps. And for me, I'm kind of in this mindset of, I do think that's a great opportunity, but I think, what would you be able to do with that capital with it being taxed in the UK versus putting it out there? If you can afford to not need that for your UK business or property or whatever it is, absolutely try and find a way to try and obviously get it out there and invest it. But I'm in a business where I need capital because ultimately we're trading all the time. So I'm getting loads of opportunities always across my desk. And I would personally rather pay that tax and then basically utilize that money in my business today. In 5-10 years' time, that might change. I might be like, do you know what? I'm trying to wind down a bit. So actually I need to start thinking about tax at that point. But look, each to their own. I don't think there's a wrong or right, but I do think that Dubai offers a lot in terms of, being tax efficient, 100%.
Yeah, I think what you're mentioning there is timing. What time are you at? Where are you going in your life? Are you scaling down? Are you increasing? What's your sort of lifestyle like?
Yeah.
And another good thing that you did really mention, which I'd thought about, was the fact that can you utilize this space yourself as well? Like if I could go there, etc. Yeah, some very, very good valid points over there. How important is traveling?
Look, to me, I think traveling is it's one of these things. I'm not a very materialistic type of person, right? So for me, the most important thing was, how do we basically create experiences, especially because our daughter's born, like since our daughter was born as well, I want to travel more because it educates her, it makes her more sharper. She's been interacting with other Singaporean kids, other Filipino kids, and she's made friends with a lot of them, and listening to different languages and seeing different cultures. When you're a kid, even up to about 8 to 10 years old, you're a sponge, you're absorbing everything. And that's what basically creates you as a person, makes you sharper, brighter, etc. So for me, it was really important that we did that. But at the same time, we can also enjoy our time by traveling. And for me, it was just so important because, again, it came back to, what's the point of working so hard and having money if you can't enjoy it? So it's having enough time to utilize your money is so important. So making money, but using it as well is really, really important as well.
Okay, nice. What else do you do in your spare time apart from just traveling?
Do you know what? I love cars. Like I genuinely do. Not from a point of view of having them to show off, but more from a point of view of I love the thrill of driving cars. Like I absolutely love it. And one of the things, I was talking to you off air was I joined a supercar club. So it's back in 2022.
So you have to have a car yourself to join that?
So the whole it's called Auto Vivendi. So shout out to Auto Vivendi. The way the club started, it started off as EC, I think it was EC25, and it was basically everyone brought their supercar to the club, and you can basically start to use other people's supercars. That's the whole point. So you bring your own supercar and you start using others. It kind of evolved because that kind of got quite problematic from insurance perspective, etc. And what they ended up doing is they get a brand new fleet of cars every single year. So they have relationships with Ferrari, Lamborghini, Porsche, etc. And every year they'll have 4 new Lamborghinis. They'll have, for example, a Urus S or Performante. They'll have an Evo Performante. Whatever, they have lots of different cars. They'll have an Aventador, etc. Skittle colours, all the colours in the Skittle packs that you get. It'll be all bright and stuff like that. And they're all brand new, spec'd out to the highest spec. And they will basically have £5 million worth of cars every single year, about 30 cars. Wow. And you can take any one of them out whenever you wanted. And their membership was based on, you can go anywhere from using the cars for 20 days a year, 1,000 miles, basically, in total, or you can use them 365 days a year with unlimited mileage, for example, Wow. So you get to choose your package. I think when you go to the top level, it's like 120 grand a year. It's like their black package. Footballers and stuff would use that. And I was kind of on their lowest package. But what that did was it opened up relationships. We went out, there was a trip where they went out to Croatia. It was their first trip for a while. It was after COVID, etc. And we did a trip to Croatia. We took out 13 supercars there. They flew everyone private jet, basically, to Croatia. We did 950 miles down the coast. They booked everything. They had transporters, because in these supercars, you can't put your luggage. They had transporters between hotel to hotel. They booked out all the nicest hotels there. The logistics, they even recce'd the whole route, so they knew the whole route like the back of their hand. We had a lead car. We had walkie-talkies. We had a lead car and then a car at the back as well. And we drove every single one of those 13 cars over 7 days. We kept on switching. And I had fun. That was fun.
What was you driving around in?
I drove everything. I drove a McLaren 620R with bucket seats. That was really cool. One of my favorite cars I drove was a Ferrari SF90, 1,000 brake horsepower. That thing was an absolute rocket, and it was very grippy. So, like, I drove an Aston Martin when I was out there as a DB9. I think it was. I can't remember exactly. I think it might be DB9. But when you put your foot down, it kind of the rear kind of gives in, and you kind of don't feel stable. SF90 grips the road. It's a hybrid as well, so and it kind of just went for it, and it was just an amazing car.
Hybrid.
Yeah, so it's part electric, the SF90, so the kind of electric kicks in. But this is the most important thing, right? Not only the cars, not only this. I was networking with people out there who, 2 of them were basically the owners of Bestway, who sponsor, I think it's Aston Villa at the time. They just basically listed on the New York Stock Exchange, I think at the time, for $4 billion.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got to speak to them. They told me all about the listing, the whole process they went through with Goldman Sachs and all the rest of it. I was out there with someone that was basically worth, I think it was nine figures at the time, sold out to Vodafone, created a telecommunications infrastructure in Africa, and he got the call from Goldman Sachs saying Vodafone want to buy you out. Never had to work a day in his life ever again. Lives in Portugal now. I was out there with a solicitor that basically deals with all the footballers and all of that kind of stuff, especially where they've had lots of problems, etc. recently, deals with lots of corporate cases. It was unbelievable. The people that you go out there with, you're never going to spend 7 days with those people ever again. It's very, very difficult. And you just get to learn stories and network and have those people behind, and I still catch up with those people today. Have I gone on to raise money and do all the rest of it from them? No, because ultimately I'm not in the business to try and basically utilize those contacts for that at this stage. But they're contacts that if I ever need anything in the future, I could probably go to. So that was for me was the takeaways, the networking, the business opportunities that came with that, as well as kind of the driving the cars as well.
And how much does that membership cost?
It's gone up since. I think at the time I was all in at it cost me £20,000. I think the trip to Croatia alone was something like 32 grand. So it wasn't cheap, I'm not going to lie. But it's something that was an experience I'll never do again, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about value for money. That's not value for money. That for me was like, what else? When else would I ever be able to get this opportunity? never. So for me, I was just like, I'm going to take that and run. And actually, funny enough, it was good value because now it's gone up so much since COVID.
Yeah.
All of their prices have gone up quite a lot as well. Do you know what the most interesting thing about the club is? They're not just making money from your membership. They're trading cars. They're trading the vehicles. They would literally get a brand new car and you think, wow, you're getting 30 new cars a year. Yeah, but they're in for 6 months and they're out for they're out after 6 months and they've made money on that sale. Yeah. Because you can't walk into Ferrari as Sean or Saif and then say, I want 4 Ferraris, spec'd out. You've got to be a customer. You've got to have a relationship with them. So, you know, that was a massive eye opener. The fact that they were making their money from trading the cars after COVID, rather than just from the memberships alone.
I heard you got a nice car.
I got Q8 basically. I love Audi basically. Okay. So I love Audi. For me is just like a brand that I really like and believe in. Look, I was getting to a point, and this is why I joined the supercar club. I was getting to a point where I was actually going to buy a supercar, and then I was like, do you know what? Let me try all these cars out first before. And do you know what? It got it out of my system. And for me, that was so important because I was also at a point where I just had a little daughter, and I was just like, it's not going to be practical, right? Yeah. I spoke to a lot of my friends that have supercars. They're like, you basically use them every other weekend or every weekend, but you're not going to use them as a daily. So for me at the time, I was just like, let me just do this. So that's why I did it. I've got it out of my system. Would I buy a supercar in the future? Yeah, probably. But I might go more for a 4x4 rather than kind of just a two-seater, if that makes sense. So for me, 4x4s are kind of really important.
What do you mean, like a Urus or something?
Maybe like a Urus. I mean, I really like the Audi RSQ8. I mean, a Urus is practically an Audi, let's be honest. But yeah, I like the RSQ8. So I think that's kind of going to be my next step, is basically probably get to an RSQ8. But look, at the same time, for me, that's not my priority. Yes, I like cars and all the rest of it, but that kind of takes it. I still do. I will go out and kind of sometimes like race or do stuff like that, like do events. But driving on UK roads, like, you know, driving a supercar in London is pointless. You're doing 20 miles an hour. You're doing 30 miles an hour. If you really, and for me, I've done that a few times, but really, let's be honest, it's about showing off in London. If you want to drive a supercar, take it down country roads. Yeah. Take it down country roads and literally give it, give it all you can, and you'll really, really enjoy it. When we went to Croatia, the interesting thing was they had the police blessings. So, the police basically allowed us to kind of just go for it. And we went through hairpins and we were drifting through hairpins. It was amazing. Wow. At the start, I was kind of like, I'm in an expensive car. I don't want to ruin this. And then at the end, I was just seeing everyone. I was just like, I'm going for it. And I was just like, I got that massive passion. And
there was no accidents or anything.
No accidents. No, because it's not like Gumball, right? Like when you go on Gumball, like you got petrol heads and they just want to basically just, they're all wanting to show off. This was actually, people that were quite respectful, people that kind of didn't come just for the cars. They came for the whole experience. And, we were 13 cars, but it was amazing. We went through villages, went through mountains, everyone was kind of talking to each other, oh, you can overtake now on around the mountains and stuff. It was just really cool. It's an experience I'll never, ever get to do again, I don't think.
100. I like the, I don't know if you've seen the Lotus Electra.
Yeah.
They look a lot like the Lamborghinis, but like they are electric.
Good value car.
Yeah, man.
Very, very good value car.
I always look at something like that because I used to have a Range Rover and then the insurance come up to $6,500 because they were being stolen left, right and centre. And in my head, I'm like, that's $6,500. I'm never going to see it again. Like, it's literally just on insurance. I couldn't stomach it, bro. I was like, take the keys back, selling this, got a couple of grand out of it. I just bought the iX.
Oh, yeah.
BMW iX.
Yeah, good cars.
Gives you 280 miles. There's no more road tax. Insurance
no
is
ULEZ.
Like £1,600 for your, 16 for your insurance. It gets you everywhere. And they got these electric, so there's rapid electric chargers that you got in Birmingham and Manchester, and there's another one called ultra rapid.
Right.
And they've opened these big stations up in Birmingham and Manchester again, and within 25 minutes you're full. And it costs you about £30, but that's cheaper than a full tank of what you put in a Range Rover.
I think electric cars are good value for money right now, but you've got to be close enough to London. So for me, I'm in Lincoln. It's about 200 miles away from London, so it doesn't make sense. But if you're close to London, you need it for London because you're saving on ULEZ, you're saving on congestion, you're saving on so much. I think electric cars are great value for money.
Yeah, I just think the technology to run the electric cars need to be lifted up.
Yeah, I feel like you're still quite early. However, don't forget there's a lot of tax efficiency there as well if you're running them through the business, etc. So I think there's a lot to like about electrics. Personally, I wouldn't get an electric right now just because I do more long range. I'm not using it for short range. So for me, it doesn't make sense. But I think if you're living in and around London and you're using it for kind of the shorter ranges, then yeah, definitely.
What's Lincoln like?
Quiet. It's a university city, right? There's a reason why I live there because a lot of people are like, but don't want to move to Manchester or London and stuff like that. I absolutely love having a really quiet because what it does for me is it gives me focus. I don't have loads of friends out there. I don't have loads of distractions. But what it does is it gives me focus. I don't go out every single evening. Literally, weekdays, I'm always at home, basically, either working from home or whatever it is. And I don't have any distractions. And when I want to come to London, like today, I'll grab a train and I'll come down to King's Cross and then I'll go to wherever I want. And then I'll grab a train and go back. Direct trains, less than 2 hours, So for me, I'd never want to live in a city because I feel like I have too many distractions, friends wanting to go out, people wanting to see me, etc., etc. And then you kind of feel like you've got loads of restaurants, you want to go out to a restaurant, etc. So in Lincoln, I've got my head down, I'm working, and it just suits me. And when we want to go on holiday, we will go on holiday. When we want to go to London or Birmingham or Manchester, wherever, we will. So for me, I really enjoy that. Plus, because you're working with less competition, generally speaking, it presents more opportunities. Not that we just focus on Lincoln, but it's something for me where I'm like, I'm probably one of the most successful people there, which you can't really say in majority of other places. Like I come to London and I'm like, absolutely no one, nothing over here. Whereas over there, so it kind of gives you a bit of a feeling of, there's a bit of success there, which is really good, especially for the younger person over there, which is pretty cool. And the second thing is, as a business owner, again, you're getting good value for money there. You get nice big houses for the right money, etc. Whereas that same house over here would be 3-4 million quid, for example. So you're not getting good value. So for me, I just live a lifestyle that it suits me really, really well.
Makes sense. And how are you locking in your gains? Because you've got a really good business.
Yeah.
You're churning over them properties, doing 4 or 5 deals a month. You're obviously making money. You're paying all your staff. Is it just lifestyle for you, or are you looking to invest into certain areas, places?
I mean, for me, team is really, really important. So I'm always people are you hiring? I'm like, I'm always hiring because if I find, and when I say hiring, I'm talking about income generating like roles and responsibilities like sales and marketing, all of this kind of stuff. If you can get the right people and you can get really, really good, talented people that don't have what it takes to be a business owner, but will be great at sales and great at bringing in the business, then for me, I'll hire them all day long because they're not basically a burden on your business, right? Operations people are burdens on your business. Admin is burden on your business because they're not bringing any income, but they're just basically costing you. So I'm always looking to invest into building our business. And by building that, we need to bring the right people on board, i.e. income generating people, and we need to nurture them. So, I'll invest into 6 months worth of salary for them before they really need to be generating, enough to basically keep them on board. So for me, I'm investing into that. But I reinvest our profits. But really at the minute, I'm at a point where we're trying to use those profits to go back into business to buy more properties. So we're trying to scale what we're doing. So I'm not really buying any more properties to hold. I've got about 90 in the portfolio. They tick along. I don't feel in this day and age you can live off rents. I genuinely don't. Because so much maintenance cost, a roof goes, a boiler goes, whatever it is, and all of a sudden, or a tenant moves out, and it's like, you need to spend 5 to 10 grand just refurbing this, whatever. And to me, that means that it's really difficult to depend on, even with 90 properties. So for me, the properties and the income is more of a long-term play. That's almost like a bit of a pension pot, if you want to call it that. And the trading is my day-to-day. So I'm just focusing on the day-to-day, and I want to just grow that.
What's your goals for the next 5 to 10 years now?
To be honest with you, from my perspective, it's a big thing that I'm really trying to do in the business is make myself less dependent. So make the business less dependent on me. So everything that I'm doing is about trying to take out the dependency of me. So whether there's a process or a system or anything that requires me to be in it, I'm taking myself out of that. So for example, a big thing that we did was I'm not analyzing and underwriting the deals to give an offer anymore. That's going through a process. So I had to get everything out of my head into a process, train someone up to do it, and they do it better than I do. So for me, the growth comes from being able to take the dependencies away because I can grow, but the more it's dependent on me, the more I'm going to get burnt out. So I'm kind of in that phase of, in order for me to grow, I need to take a step back, then focus on the business development side of things, the people, etc. And then that's what helped the business grow. But if I'm constantly being involved in every single little thing and every single decision, I can't grow.
And what is the end result?
Do you know what? I genuinely don't have an end result. I'm just enjoying the journey. I'm embracing the journey, and I'm kind of like, I'm in a good place. We've got a good balance, got a good lifestyle, we're in good health. And for me, the main thing is just maintaining that. Because the other problem is by constantly chasing, you're almost going to get to a point of dissatisfaction all the time. But if you're kind of like, I appreciate where I am. I'm in a good place. I'm successful because I've got good health. I've got my family around me. I've got a roof over my head. I've got a car in the driveway. That's success. You don't need to have the boat. You don't need to have the latest car, the latest house, all of the rest of it. So for me, it's being appreciative of what I've got, but at the same time, knowing that the business is growing doesn't have to grow by double or 3 times, whatever. But if I really wanted to put numbers on it, if we're at 240 now, I want to get to 500 properties by 2027. That's kind of the goal, But if we get to 450, am I going to be upset? No. If we get to 550, I'm going to be ecstatic. Not really. It's kind of just like this goal to know that we are growing and we're going somewhere.
Nice. How much do you think you're quite energetic? Like, I mean, you're not jumping up and down, but you're quite energetic with your energy, your vibration when you're speaking about things. How important is things like exercise and diet within your regime as well?
Do you know what? For me, and there's so many people that are like, sleep for 4 hours or 5 hours, wake up at this time, don't skip breakfast, blah, blah, blah. And I'm kind of like, that could work for some people. That doesn't work for me. So I've tried to do that. I've tried to do all of these fads and all the rest of it. And I'm like, my body wants certain things. Just listen to your body, right? My body was telling me I need 8 hours of sleep every single night. If I don't, my skin's not great. My mindset's not great. I can't think properly. I get headaches. So for me, I'm like, go with your body. So if I sleep 8 or 9 hours, I'm happy. So, that means that, if I wanted to wake up early and be more productive, I need to sleep earlier, basically. Not sleep late and wake up early and all the rest of it, because that's not great. So that's kind of one thing. So sleep for me is really, really important, but everyone needs to listen to their body. There's some people that I know that can survive on 6 hours sleep and they're happy with that. Diet for me is about not necessarily just, so I don't snack quite a lot, right? So when I talk about snack, I mean the bad snacks, the crisps, the chocolates, all the rest of it. That's all dead calories. You're basically not getting much nutritional calories from that. But for me, the most important thing is having a good quality meal, right? So a good quality breakfast, whether it's eggs with bread or something, and again, you get a lot of these people, skip carbs. It's like, but you need carbs, you need fats, you need protein, you need all of this stuff in the right amounts, And I've even looked at, I've done keto diets and stuff. They're not healthy. It's not healthy to be on a keto diet for 5 months plus. You can do it for a month or two. So for me, diet is all about balance. You need good quality fruits, good quality veg in your diet. And you need to have a lot of meals as well. Like I'm having 3 meals every single day because the meals stop you from snacking. And snacking is what normally causes the problems for a lot of people, So for me, I'm kind of like, if I have 3 good sized meals and it stops me from snacking, I'm happy with that,
What sort of what are you having like in a day? Because, what is a good balanced diet?
Like a good balanced diet is, having dinner, which it could be rice, it could be bread, it could be whatever. Even if you have a pizza, for example, it's not the end of the world. Maybe not Domino's, but maybe make something fresh and maybe get one from, frozen pizza, whatever. But just not something that's going to be a greasy Domino's style pizza, whatever. But then having a salad with it, for example, a good mix of fruits, a good mix of veg, for example, in the salad. Sometimes, for example, we can't be bothered to make the fruits. But then I'm like, you know what? If I make a fruit salad, that will make you want to have that. Makes it look tastier, makes it look more appetizing, etc. And then on the odd occasion, if we do want chocolate, I'll have dark chocolate, for example, or dark chocolate with nuts. So again, it's not like that's good for you, but also it's not bad for you either. Like dark chocolate is obviously good, generally speaking. So again, I find a balance. Look, do I not indulge sometimes? Yeah, I will indulge, but that's not every single day. That's just when I feel it and I'm at somewhere where they do have something pretty cool, whether it's whatever, it could be waffles, it could be crepes, etc. I'll go for it.
I think the reason why I'm directing this question is because you do come from a pharmaceutical sort of background.
Yeah.
And what do you think about all of these GM, genetically modified vegetables, fruits, what they've been sprayed with? And it's quite a big link to people getting diseases like cancers and stuff like that. How do you ever think about that sort of stuff?
I do.
You shop differently?
Yeah, look, processed foods in general is not great, So when you're looking at trying to basically eat something, you really want to have unprocessed food. Even, for example, things like fruits and veg. Eating the skin is a good thing. For example, a lot of people take the skin off, don't like the skin, but the skin has really good nutrients in them. Also, things like, making a smoothie rather than eating the raw fruit and veg. actually a raw fruit and veg is so much better for you than making a smoothie, because when you're breaking it down, you're also breaking down a lot of the good nutrition. It's still nutritional. But for me, trying to stay away from processed foods, genetically modified stuff, all of this stuff really that basically comes in, pretty much a lot of the stuff that comes in packaging, which is not natural. I genuinely do believe that's what leads to a lot of diseases, a lot of the cancers, a lot all of this, all of the rest of it. And that's why we are seeing, people dying from this stuff, people getting diseases from this stuff. So for me, and again, I come back to there's a moderation, because I guarantee you go out and eat a McDonald's every single day for the rest of your life, you're not going to be surviving for a long time, And there's a reason why McDonald's will look pretty much exactly the same in a year's time than it is from today, because a lot of that is modified to look good, but it's not necessarily modified to basically make you feel good and be nutritional for you. So yeah, I just think, look, do things in moderation. There's nothing wrong with having a McDonald's once in a while, but do it in moderation. That's the key.
Keep it simple.
And just have a really good core diet, and try and implement fruits and veg and stuff like that into your diet.
So I'm not going to see in your Instagram you jumping into a cold plunge bowl.
No, that's not for me. Look, again, again, I've never done it, so I don't know about it, and I don't know really. I mean, I'm sure there's health benefits to it, but for me, again, I'm not into a lot of these kind of different trends right now. For me, the most important thing is just finding balance, because everyone works differently, everyone's body works differently. But is that something I might not look at in the future? I might do, but it's just not something that I'm looking at right now.
This has been an amazing conversation. Like you're an encyclopedia, honestly.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
We've talked about traveling. We've talked about business, health. We've touched on so many different subjects. I don't think I've ever gone that in depth in over 60 episodes with anybody. But Saif, you've been absolutely amazing. If you could just look straight into your camera and just let everybody know how they follow you.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. It's Saif Derzi, SaifDerzi. I'm also on LinkedIn if you want to connect with me there. And I'm also on TikTok. So yeah, feel free. But Instagram is the main platform that I use, basically.
Amazing. And there you go, guys. Another amazing episode. I've still got one bone to pick with you guys. Only 89% of you, 89% of you are not subbed to the channel. So you're watching the content, but you're not subscribing. And that's what really helps us to get on guests like Saif. So please make sure you smash the sub button, leave Saif a comment, and we'll also, put in the link, the Avius, the stuff
the
about
American Express.
the American Express, so you can take advantage of that and share this with somebody who really needs it. So until then, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.